In episode number 292 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, we covered the DC Comics July 2018 solicitations.
We also have the long-awaited release of Action Comics number 1000.
80 fucking years.
Wow.
Our review, our comic book highlight this week is Skyward number 1.
All of this and so much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I know last week we had mentioned that Mr. Riggs and Clayton were going to be on this week's episode, or that was going to be this week's episode, but we realized that we can't record on the first week of May due to work schedules and baby schedules and everything schedules. So instead we're going to release that in the first week of May instead, and you'll have a regular episode of this and next week too.
Just more Papa Kelli for you.
That's right. For any brand new listeners of the show, the way we format the show is first we go over some news, and then we head on over into our Brocat block where we talk about the personal lives of Kelli and I. We head into our Patreon shoutouts of the week, thanking the people that make the show possible. And finally, we finish it off with our comic book review.
But right now, we're going to go ahead and jump right into our news.
The DC July 2018 solicitations. These are just the highlights. And of course, being that we are a DC fanboy and a DC fangirl, you can look up the Marvel solicitations, you can look up the Image solicitations, but we're going to cover the DC Comics solicitations. Those are the ones we review the most.
Why am I a DC fan girl? And why are you DC? But why can't we just be DC fan people?
We're not SJWs, Kelli.
Magic School Bus got it right. They just call them persons.
Who did?
Magic School Bus all the time. They're
called
like,
who persons?
No, the people. So there's this one episode when they're in the pinball machine, and then Carlos is like, "Man, you're battle stations." And DA, because they're fighting that episode because they're about to be a couple, they're like, "Don't you mean person your color stations?"
Who is this?
DA.
I'd be like, "Shut up, DA." Jesus Christ. I'm trying to do something.
Can we do episodes of you in Magic School Bus?
Yes.
That would make me so happy. Would you ever get mad at Miss Frizzle?
No way.
Okay,
Never. No.
good.
No. I'd listen to everything she says.
Would you try to like take Miss Frizzle home? Like,
I mean, who wouldn't?
Hey, Miss Frizzle.
Add to her roster of men.
She's got like 4 already in the show.
All ages, all colors.
She doesn't care.
Just wants some. The first bid on the July, coming to your comic shop in July. A Future Quest Presents and New Superman and the Justice League of China will be ending in July and June, respectively.
I didn't know either of these were things, so there we go.
Do you remember the New Superman comic that we reviewed?
Yeah, I remember it. I just thought it ended a long time ago.
I thought it would have. Like, I remember when we first reviewed the first issue, I was like, this comic's going to be canceled within a year. Well, it didn't get canceled. It got renamed into New Superman and the Justice League of China, and it did involve the Chinese Justice League, which I don't know if you remember. We read about the Chinese Batman, Chinese Wonder Woman, but the title change did not actually help with sales. It's still not a great selling title as we expected, and neither is Future Quest, so those will be ending this summer.
We also have Hellblazer number 24, which hints at being the final issue of that series as well.
So Constantine possibly going away. Do you remember with Justice League Dark when we covered that early solicitation of that comic? Do you remember if Constantine was a part of that team? Because it would explain where they would be moving him to with the new Justice League Dark comic coming.
I don't remember. Was he on there? I
don't remember him being there.
I feel like I so dislike comic book Constantine that even if you told me about it, I would have blocked it from my memory. Like, pachoo, doesn't even exist.
It's just more of DC cutting the titles that aren't selling, you gotta do it, and making room for the new titles that are showing up like Justice League Odyssey and Justice League Dark.
Are we going to pick up either of those?
We're gonna try both, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Is Constantine in Dark?
We don't know. That's what I was just asking. But it's that fuzzy man bat that I really like, and that Alan Moore swamp thing.
Goliath.
Yes.
Yes. Fuzzy man bat. Goliath. Learn his name.
And then in Justice League Odyssey, it's got sexy Darkseid.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Where he's slimmed down and he's like,
He's younger.
Hello.
Or older, I guess, because he was a baby in Dark Knight's Metal, so he's just getting older.
And sexier.
He's hit his early 20s.
There you go. Is that when we're all sexy as our early 20s?
For women, maybe.
See, yes,
you've convinced me at this point that every day I grow more handsome and sexier. I don't know if that's foolish or if I'm just becoming the handsomest 30-year-old.
Men get more handsome with age. So I have a friend at work who, he's gay, but he was one of my best friends at work. And all the time he's like, ooh, look at that boy. I'm like, he's a fucking baby. And he's like, he's probably 25, Kelly. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm old. I think these 25-year-old men are babies.
That's how it goes.
I guess.
It's just like Louis C.K.'s old stand-up where he was talking about how, he's like, what about women that, and nothing against, I guess, girls that do bartend, but he's like, all they do, like, is that your career choice? You're just going to bartend? Like, I stand here, I give drinks, and guys want to fuck me. And it's like, what do you do after that? He's like, I don't want to fuck you. You're too young. I'm old. It's like, I'm old enough to be your dad. And then he jumps into, well, I do want to fuck you, but you won't fuck me, so fuck you.
Hey, bartending is a career. I considered it at one point. Did I ever tell you that?
Yeah, I remember.
I was about to go into bartending. You make a lot of money. I mean, even when you get older, unless you're like old.
When you get to a certain age, that's when you have to transfer to like the Disney type of area.
Yeah.
where you're guaranteed customers.
Where you still make a shit ton of money.
And you won't be fired for being too old.
Right. But the thing, how it all boils down, I'm in the service industry, if anybody can't tell by the way I'm talking, but it all boils down to building your customer base and how you talk to people, and if those customers will keep coming back to you, even if you're past your prime.
Well, I'm hoping that happens because I've been building a customer base at my local comic shop, and once this hair goes, when I have to go bald, it's going to be a rough ride. I told
you, I've shown you pictures. Do you think Patrick Stewart is handsome?
Yes, but I am not Patrick Stewart. I will never be Patrick Stewart.
Am I married to you or Patrick Stewart? You. So.
Is Aquaman bald yet? He will be in Aquaman 3 when I have to film that shit. Otherwise, they're going to have to CGI hair on. WB's actually better.
Not put a wig. They're going to CGI
Fuck that shit.
Hair on.
No, they're better at CGIing hair on than they are at taking off mustaches, so it's going to work out fine.
I sure hope so.
Another solicitation, Batman number 51. So this is the issue right after the giant wedding that you are very much counting down the minutes for.
So excited.
So in this solicitation, let me know if you approve. Dick Grayson is briefly taking on the role of Batman again.
Yes.
And why is that? What is your theory as to why Dick Grayson is back as Batman?
Because Bruce is on his honeymoon.
It's not his fucking... You said that to me, like, last night, and I was like, holy shit, that's true. What if they're all taking over for Batman for his fucking honeymoon?
That makes sense. It's the issue right after the wedding. Mm-hmm. Where do you go? You go on a honeymoon. You know they're going to go on a honeymoon to some beach place, right? Because that's just where they're going to go. And then there's going to be some crime they have to stop. So they're going to be running around solving crime anyway on their fucking honeymoon because that's who they are and that's what they do.
I was just going to ask you that. If they're going to end up punching people in the fucking face while they're on their honeymoon.
Of course. That's who they are. They can't... Neither of them can relax.
Right.
They're not. They're going to enjoy the sun and the food, and then at night they're going to go fucking do something. Probably have sex on a rooftop again. I don't know.
So are the criminals in Gotham going to be like, why is Batman suddenly really whiny? Like, what happened?
Why'd you break in again? Every time I have to stop you.
Oh, Robin. Well, you know what? There's a lot of people that liked Dick Grayson Batman. That was after Batman, quote unquote, died with Darkseid's Omega Beams. Mm-hmm. I love that they had to make a special rule when Batman got zapped with it. Like, normally you'd get incinerated. You'd be destroyed.
Right.
But then with Batman, it's like, oh, he got displaced in time because Batman can't fucking die. And it's like, well, all right. I just chalk it up to Batman his way out of Darkseid's fucking Omega Beams.
Of course he did. Batman can Batman his way out of anything. As happy as I am for this wedding, Batman could Batman his way out of his own fucking wedding.
And when that run was going on with Dick Grayson as Batman, it was all Damian Wayne picking on Nightwing, on Robin, basically telling him, like, you're not Batman, you're not my dad, this is not how father would do it. And it was just, that was the whole book. And them kind of growing mutually respectful of each other. So some people like that. It was kind of like two siblings in a way, or like an uncle. And yeah, that's probably the closest that it would be. I know a lot of people compare Dick and Batman to like father and son, but I always viewed it as like an older type of more mature relationship between the two. even though Dick does treat Damian like a little brother, I think that shows the immaturity in fucking Dick Grayson.
It's a big family aspect. And if you think about it, even if you have a family where, let's say the uncle is a few years older than his nephew, you still have that same kind of relationship where they're not really treating them like we typically think of an uncle, where they're all, older around the same age. But for example, my best friend's family, her little brother was 5 years older than her nephew, just because the kids were so spread out, when they were born, her siblings were. And so when they interact, it's more like a brother interaction as opposed to an uncle and a nephew.
Right.
So it's the same kind of thing. Yes, Dick Grayson's probably a little immature too. But that's the kind of relationship that they have. And yes, I don't really see him and Batman having a father-son relationship. But I don't know, maybe further back it was, but now it's more like friends, but family.
It is still a pretty neat thing, though, that they're doing where it's like, okay, here's Dick Grayson again as Batman, because naturally he is, if something were to happen to Bruce, he'd be the one to take over.
Of course.
And Nightwing has said, even in the DC Rebirth, he said, even though I don't want to be Batman, I respect the legacy so much and I respect Bruce that I would do it. And when Tim Drake in Detective Comics, he said Dick Grayson was Batman for a few years, but he's never going to be as good as Bruce, and eventually I think they said he gave up or something, like he didn't even get killed, he just stopped being bad, like I'm done. It's like, yeah, all right, that's very Dick Grayson of you. And that's when it went down to Tim Drake, and he ended up going pseudo evil based on what he knew. I still like the best moment in DC Rebirth with Damian, and I don't know if you remember, but it was in Detective Comics where they're all debating as to whether or not they're going to kick Batwoman off the team if she's off the Bat family. And now someone does make the terminology, or does bring up, Damian, what do you think? You haven't said anything about whether or not she needs to stay or go or be a part of this team. And Damian just says, I never viewed any of you as a part of the family. It's just Father and I, so I don't think any of you should be here anyway. and Nightwing's like, all right.
Damian, you asshole.
So it's like, he's like, I don't like any of you anyway, so why are you asking me? You know what my position is. Yeah.
This run, can I say, though, I've read 2 of these Batman issues because I was way behind on comics, so I finally caught up today. Leading up to this wedding, the books are so good.
They're really good.
Oh, they're so good. The one that we just got with Booster Gold, oh my God. I was like, what are you doing, Booster Gold? Like, oh, man. So good. Read them.
I think that's Batman 45. It already sold out. It's out of printing. There's going to be a second printing showing up. Even me, as someone that I don't agree with the Batman Catwoman wedding. I love a good story, though. It's just kind of one of those things where, as long as they're telling a good story, I don't care if it's like, yeah, show me a good story. I don't care if I would never write that particular thing. I have regulars at the shop who know I'm a Batman Talia fan. And they're like, so what do you think about this wedding? I'm like, look, I'm enjoying the story. As much as I don't agree with this, I understand that they're never going to be my stories. It's not always going to be the way I wanted to, and that's, I think, where a lot of comic readers kind of fuck themselves up, because they're like, they're not doing that right. It's like, well, what if it's a good story? Fuck yourself. Like, it's one of the closest things, and it's going to be in Action 1000, is there's Brian Michael Bendis said he was going to do something that would upset Superman fans, and that is a rewrite or a retcon of how Krypton got destroyed way back in the origin of Superman. So it is a little bit touchy because it is kind of classic, but it's not the first time someone has revisited the origin of the explosion of Krypton. So I was like, oh, that's it? But I can see fans being like, hold on a second. But being that it's Brian Michael Bendis, it could have been much worse.
I have encountered the same feeling more often with fan fiction than with comics, because I've read, of course, billions more hours of fan fiction than comics. But yeah, that's exactly the thing. Even if the couple that I want doesn't end up together, if it's a great story, then you enjoy the ride, and then at the end you're just like, oh, my heart, they should be together. Unless it's Batman and Talia, then fuck no.
Is there a good Aang and Katara story out there?
Oh yeah, there's plenty of them where, like, Katara and Zuko are supposed to be together, and they were together when they were younger, but then they had to separate for the betterment of the world, and then they ended up with fucking Mai and Aang or whatever, and then that's where we go back to Legend of Korra, and then they bring it full circle, and when they're old and their spouses are dead, then they get back together and they're in love.
That's Zuko and Katara again, though. I'm saying Katara and Aang.
I mean, there are some like that.
Have you read a good one though?
Like she's always with Zuko and then leaves.
Those are the ones you're reading. Zatara stories. That's what you're doing.
When there's love, I'm sure there's good Katara and Aang stories. I just don't care. I read a Bulma Goku one once.
That's fucking weird.
It was so weird. I'll tell you what happens later. Man, it was so good because it was really still a Bulma and Vegeta story, and I've never been able to find it again. But I read it years ago, and I still remember, and it still hits me right in the heart.
Well, something that's hitting the heart of fandom.
Ooh, I
couldn't think of any way to go from Goku to...
You sure tied that in.
From Goku to Injustice versus He-Man and the Masters of the fucking Universe #1.
Let's see. You could Goku to fighting games to Injustice.
There you go. Done. Those are the two universes. So we've got He-Man and the Masters Universe versus Thundercats. That was the latest crossover that they did. Sense. And it definitely makes sense. And they also have done Justice League versus He-Man and the Masters Universe. They're all owned by Warner Brothers, so they can use them. DC publishes, or used to publish, He-Man comic books. And now it's like, why Injustice? I understand it's probably the most successful, and I'm trying to think of another one because I might be corrected, but it's probably the most successful video game-based comic book in probably all of DC's catalog. Because the Injustice comic sold extremely well. Gods Among Us. People kept telling me, like, you got to read this. Like, I know it's a video game comic, but it's actually really good. I was like, yeah, I'll get around to it. And then that went by. Then they did Injustice 2. Then they did the Injustice spin-off comic books. And that comic is still fucking going. And now it's about to cross over into the He-Man and the rest of the Masters of the Universe, in which Superman is the villain. And they're all teaming up with Batman to stop Superman and probably Skeletor in this weirdo crossover.
That sounds really cool. I have never watched He-Man, but if they're going to bring about a great story, hey, why not?
This miniseries is going to be written by Tim Seeley, who's doing the Prelude to the Wedding one-shots, with art by Freddie Williams II, who is currently doing Batman TMNT 2.
I really like the art for Batman TMNT 2, so I'm glad that they got him. I think it's going to look really, really cool. We'll give it a shot. Like I said, all I know about He-Man is I have the power. And Skeletor going...
It's very homoerotic. Like, we do play it at the store every now and again, because I never grew up with it. It was before my time. And there's lots of bits where Skeletor's like, I have to make him come to me. Like, there are some weirdo lines in there. It's like,
to make him come?
Like, come to me or whatever. Like, there's a lot of lines in there that are like, I'll be working, and then I hear a pretty gay line, and I was like, huh? What's going on? And that happens too often. But now I'm like, oh, it's He-Man. It's super gay. It's fine. It's just, I never grew up with it. So I'm like, I didn't know there were gay cartoons from before I existed.
Is He-Man making a comeback, like, in general? Is that why they're starting to push him? Is it that time in nostalgia where it's coming back again?
It's not, I wouldn't call it coming back, but I'm seeing a lot of adults in their 40s and 50s like now asking me about He-Man toys. They're asking me about He-Man comics. They tried to do a revival about 10 years ago where they did the old toys again, but they made them larger and painted them better, and they made them more collectible for the older audience. It makes sense. They're going to spend a little bit more to recapture the childhood. They did that with Batman the Animated Series. They did these like 6-inch deluxe Batman toys, which I didn't get because I'm like, that's a little too big. You know, I'm used to the tiny little Batman toys. They were even smaller when I was a kid. So for He-Man, I think they shot their load a little bit too early, because if they had waited another decade, now is probably the time to strike. But you never know. Like, when do you really know when people are looking for that?
This will be a good way to put out feelers, too. Like, oh, let's see how this sells. And if it sells well, then, yes, it's time. Skeletor's like, get it all out there.
There's still the comics that DC published that were the origin of Skeletor, and then, like, the origin of He-Man. And I guess before then they hadn't told them because they were just trying to sell toys. They were making a silly cartoon. There's a great documentary on Netflix called The Toys That Made Us. And they went through He-Man, and it's just like, you see a lot of those guys, and they're like, yeah, we were drunk and high, and we're just like, yeah, we'll make that villain next and make that into a toy. And that was the whole point. They were just, I mean, that, you know, that was the business back then. And even now it still is, as we saw with Not Legend of Korra, with Green Lantern, the animated series, they couldn't sell the toys, so they ended up canceling the TV show. So with this, it's going to go and appeal to older readers. I think with Injustice, though, it's a weird amalgam because it's going to be people our age who are playing the Injustice games, and then people that are much older that are reading He-Man. So I don't know how that combination's going to work, but to me, it's one of those where it's like, I never would have seen this particular crossover happen.
You think he's still going to have his tiny little shorts on?
Ooh, He-Man himself?
Yeah.
Yes.
And his giant pecs and his tiny little shorts. He-Man's definitely gay. Have you seen his little bob?
He does hit on Princess something. Like, I've seen that on the show several times where he's Prince Adam and he's, like, super kind of wimpy, but he's still buff, which is kind of weird.
Okay.
And he's always like, and she's like, oh, I love that He-Man. And he's like, yeah, he sure is a great guy. But what do you think about me? Like, he's trying to make her like him for him.
So he's trying to get a beard.
Ooh, what is that? What do you mean a beard?
You never gay guys have a beard?
No.
So if they're sometimes if they're not out of the closet yet, they date a woman to make it seem like they're straight to have a beard. So that's what he's doing.
It seems like he does, but then he fights villains and that was one of the lines where he's like, you're soft again. And it was a guy that I think stretches. And that's another one of those where I was like, and I looked up, we're going to have to change that. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
There's He-Man porn out there.
Oh,
Somebody made it, and they didn't even change the lines.
All the poor He-Man fans out there, the Brokettes, are like, hey, and it's like, guys, it's not negative. It's not a bad thing. If you view it as a negative, that's on you again. There's one more solicitation, and I ran it by you. I didn't run it by you, but I was like, hey, this is what we're getting. This is going to be in our home
and that's
late this year.
Marriage.
So it's a Batman black and white statue, and these, believe it or not, are actually collectible because they have started numbering them. Our Batman Beyond one by Dustin Nguyen.
I
made the mistake of posting that about 3 years ago, and this is after it was out of print. They didn't do a second printing on it, and I had this guy who throughout the year kept messaging me like, hey, are you selling that? What's going on? And I was like, what the fuck is going on? I looked it up, and at the time it was $300. I'm like, holy shit, man.
Wow.
So these older ones do go for some money. Like, I don't know if you remember the Bruce Timm one you were trying to get me. I wouldn't even look that shit up.
Oh, no, when I was trying to get it for you, it was already $400. How much is the Dustin Nguyen one worth now?
Probably close to $500.
I mean, I'm
don't
not
want to look it
selling
up.
that shit. That one's mine.
You know what Dustin did with his?
What?
He got the prototype one because it was based off of his artwork.
That's awesome.
And he ended up coloring in the wings in like red Sharpie. So it's like he's never going to sell it.
No.
And actually, that might even be worth more because it's the artist who designed it now enhancing the actual fucking thing.
If he ever comes, or if I'm ever at a con where he is, I'm going to get him to sign that statue, and then it'll be worth even like
That's a good fucking idea.
Money. Yeah.
He's got to sign the box too.
He's signed fucking everything, man. Just our kid here, sign his forehead. Whatever you want, Dustin. Whatever.
But they are coming out with the Batman Who Laughs Batman black and white statue. So even though we didn't care for Dark Knight's Metal, and I found out why. It ties in heavily into Grant Morrison's history of what Batman went through when he got shot by the Omega Beams, and a lot of what this Batman RIP setup was. So Scott Snyder actually revisited a lot of that and tied it into Hawkman and into Batman. But you got to admit that the designs for the evil Batman are pretty awesome. They're good enough to make into action figures and to make into statues.
This guy's super fucking scary, so he needs to hide somewhere, not in my living room, where I'm going to walk through the middle of the night and he's going to be like, hey, I'm fucking Batman.
But as we said, those are it for the highlights on our DC July 2018 solicitations. For a full list, head on over to Newsarama. They have a What Did We Learn From the Solicitations, and they have a full list of what's coming up.
Next up, we have some news from Batman White Knight artist and writer Sean Murphy, who recently tweeted the ground rules to his Murphyverse at DC Comics.
I almost felt like he was taking a bit of a jab at comics and creators and artists.
I feel like he's biting off more than he can chew, because you don't make these fucking promises before something's completely written, okay, thanks.
Yeah, he's going to run into some kind of delay, and he's going to end up being his own asshole.
Yeah.
So to read off a quote, let's read off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All his 6 points, his 6 promises.
Ooh.
So promise number 1, quote, when someone dies, they stay dead, period.
He'll break that one. Okay, 2, Every book comes out on time.
He'll definitely break that
Broken.
one. Number 3, no narration balloons unless it's a voiceover in a flashback.
Broken. Okay, 4, no excessive amounts of variants to burden comic shops. At most, there will be 2. The main cover and the variant for the super passionate collector.
That seems to be DC's mantra anyway, which has worked out a lot better for comic shops, I can definitely say, where we don't have to order 25 copies to get one.
Right.
Marvel is still doing that shit, where they're still doing
ridiculous.
these incentive variants. You have to order 200% of this old issue that came out 2 months ago, artificially inflating the numbers in comic shops. At least the ones that I know are done playing that fucking game. We're not going to order up just so that we can get that special variant. And a lot of customers know too, where they're like, oh, did you get this variant? No, we didn't. Let me show you the incentive. I'll pull up Diamond and I'll be like, look at this. 150% of X-Men Gold number 18? No, fuck them. We're not going to do it. And 100% of them go, yeah, that's ridiculous. Like, you're just going to be sitting on copies. Exactly. So that's a DC rule, so I can see that going through. His other promise, number 5, there will be at least one awesome vehicle in each book.
It doesn't have to be a different vehicle. You notice he didn't promise that.
Right.
Just an awesome vehicle. And finally, number 6, no complicated tie-ins to other series or events. White Knight will be easy to get into whether you read comics or not. End quote.
And that is a truth, because all you have to do is explain the premise. Batman is portrayed as evil to Gotham City after Joker becomes good, after he becomes a lawyer and lawyers his way into Gotham City's heart. And that's when people are like, oh, that's weird. So Batman's the villain and Joker's the hero. Mm-hmm. It's like, yep, here's issue number 1. They all want to read it. And with Batman White Knight 2 coming out late this year, that's going to be another good way to jump into this series.
So far, the series has been really strong. I think we're about done with the initial arc, aren't we?
It's got that? 1 issue left.
1 issue. And then, of course, we're going to get into the Murphyverse, which will be much more. But I have been enjoying it. It's, like you said, very easy to follow. Even if I get behind on my comics and don't read it for a month, then I still remember what's happening. I can keep going from there.
Sean's hint at a White Knight number 2 announcement was for October. So that would put it right near... the October release would be perfect for something like White Knight number 2. Mm-hmm. The final issue of Batman White Knight releases on May 9th, just weeks away.
Something that we have been waiting weeks for, though, and finally released, Action Comics number 1000. And after its release, all covers except for the main Jim Lee and the blank cover have sold out and gone out of print at Diamond Distributors. They're gone.
They're all gone, and this doesn't mean that comic shops are... What'd you realize?
Did they sell out faster than a speeding bullet?
That should be the pre-release. Sold out faster than a speeding bullet, signed DC Comics.
It's perfect.
So what this means, and I know people are going to say, my comic shop still has these variants. It's like, right, this means that once those are gone, that is it. They can't get more. And that Diamond Distributor is where comic shops throughout the nation get their comics from. So what they're saying is that they'll probably get more Jim Lee of the main cover, and the blank covers, which you can take to a convention and have someone commission a custom piece for you. But as far as all of the decades variants, so the 30s through the 2000s, the Lee Bermejo, and I tweeted out that I consider you an intellectual if you bought the Allred and the Michael Cho variant. Like, I personally respect you. Like, mwah, yes, your tastes agree with mine.
So you are of higher standard, higher
That
class.
is correct. You're of higher standards that I sit on as well. Welcome to the intellectual fucking
okay.
Action Comics 1000 level.
We've talked about these variants, though. All of the variants are really nice, except like one. But all of them are very nice. It's great that they did all the different decades, got all these different artists to do the style from those different decades. It is a pretty hefty price point, though. $8.99 is what they came in.
It's actually $7.99.
$7.99.
Normally, 80-page comics, though, if you take the Marvel mantra, are $9.99. So when Deadpool 25 came out, it was an 80-pager. That was also $9.99. This one is $7.99 for 80 pages, so cheaper for the same price, for the same pages, 0 ads. I don't know if anyone noticed, as you're reading Action Comics 1000, there are no ads at all in that Action 1000. And imagine how many fucking marketers, how many companies, how much they could have charged these companies
so much.
to say, do you want to be you want to have a page on the 1000th issue of Action Comics. Instead, DC said, no, this is the 1000th issue. We're not going to overbloat the price. We're not going to put in ads. We're going to do this right.
To me, that just speaks more to how much DC Comics actually appreciates these characters and appreciates what comics are and the people who read them. Because if you look on the flip side, do you think Marvel would ever release a comic that doesn't have ads? Especially if it was a 1000th?
They have hit a bunch of 800s, 700s. Captain America just hit 700. Deadpool is about to hit 300, I believe. Granted, I don't remember... Action Comics 900 probably had ads. So when their 1000th issue does come out, and now there's precedents, right? Now people can say, hey, Action 1000 didn't have ads, Marvel. Are you going to have 1,000 ads in fucking Amazing Spider-Man 1000? What's going to happen? So now they're going to be pressured into, don't put any ads in issue 1000 of ASM.
But going back to my other point, it just shows how much DC Comics cares about this character, because for them, it wasn't about making the money. It was about doing the character justice. They got all these big names. They spent the money on all these different variants for every person. Superman is essentially what built their company. Batman built their company, but what really started comics to get to where we are. And if you're going to overblow that with ads, yes, you can make a lot of money on those ads, but that's not doing the character justice. That's not keeping the spirit of that character alive, I guess, or really showing fans, like, thank you all for supporting this character to get to where we are. We're so grateful for him.
Every fan of, and you hit on it briefly, every fan of superheroes has Superman to thank, because without Superman, imagine how many other characters you would not have in the Marvel and comics and DC. Any of those, I would even argue Batman. Like, would we have Batman if it weren't for Superman? There's a lot of those characters. And I remember there were an old junior high school friend, and I argued with him, and I said, he was a big Sony fanboy, and I was like, just remember, because he used to slam Nintendo all the time. He's like, they've never done anything good. I'm like, well, hold on. If it weren't for Nintendo, we probably wouldn't have PlayStation, because they revived the video game era when the Atari went under, and essentially video games were dead. And then the Nintendo Entertainment Console came out and revived home consoles for everyone. And he's like, no, there would still. I'm like, there wouldn't be Street Fighter, there wouldn't be Kingdom of Hearts. And he's like, no, those would still be there. I'm like, no, you would have different versions.
One of those isn't there, but okay, I'm sorry, continue.
I'm like, these would not be the same if it weren't for Nintendo and the Nintendo Entertainment System. And he's like, oh, you're just biased. I'm like, move my bias aside. I do like Nintendo, but think just critically for a second. And it's the same with Superman. Just think for a second. You would not be enjoying Infinity War this month. I'm not talking to you, because we're not, but the listeners would not be enjoying Infinity War if it weren't for Superman. And I think that goes back to that weight of what this character means for not just fans, but for the industry as a whole. And the stories themselves, you haven't gotten around to reading. That was like, you have 3 comics left. One of them is Action 1000. And I will tell you that people that come into the shop and they're like, so here it is. This is the one. I'm like, yep, that's Action 1000.
Can you put it like behind glass and a little baby carrier like wrapped up and they're all like, aw, there it is. That's what I feel like they're doing right now.
It's so, like, how many, in the grand scheme of how many people will exist in the history of our particular human race, we are but a blink of an eye of a generation or generations of people that can say we walked up when Action 1000. And I know it's a fucking comic, and I know it in the grand scheme of things, it means nothing, and we can argue that with this everything. Everyone, no one matters, and we can go that route. But if you want to romanticize it, if you want to go with what matters right now, and you can say, like, you can walk into a shop right now, pick up the 1000th issue of Action Comics. You yourself are fortunate that you can do that. You're fortunate that you can go and watch Infinity War in theaters. I can extend it to everything. And there's that many more generations, past and in the future, that don't exist yet, that aren't in the position that you are in right now.
And that's truly amazing. That really shows how far comics have gone to get to this point where we could have a 1000th. It's the first 1000th, isn't it? At least of a big...
I believe it is the very first comic book that has hit 1,000 issues.
And that's absolutely amazing. And over the next few decades, we'll begin to see more of them as, you know, Batman gets there. What number is Batman on now? 9-something, right?
9-7. Yeah, it's going to be Detective Comics 1000 should be next year.
Okay. So, see, we're going to continue to see more of them. But to say you were here for the very first one, Superman, which started it all, absolutely amazing.
If you can get the Decades variants, because as we mentioned, going back to this brief story, those are out of print. You're not going to see them again. More than likely, DC is going to be doing second printings of the Jim Lee cover, not of the Decades variants. But if they're smart, and I think this is what they're going to do, they'll do an all-new cover for the second printings. Maybe they'll do a new Jim Lee one. Maybe they'll commission someone else like Art Germ to do another one, even though he has his own exclusive one. Maybe they'll make it available to all buyers out there. So I think that's what they should do. Instead of just recoloring Action Comics, throwing 1,000 on it and changing it with the same Jim Lee cover, I do think they should maybe commission Jim to do a new one or anyone else. And just now people will have to collect an 11th cover if they want to have all 1,000.
Oh, man, we would do it.
We didn't end up getting all of them. We ended up dropping 3 or 4.
Again, just the reasons we're broke. We can't get all of them. We wanted to. You had high hopes. And then you check that bank account on New Comic Book Day.
But yeah, as Brian said on Twitter, just wait till Detective Comics hits its 1,000. If it were Batman, that's what he told me. If it were Batman, I'd get all the covers.
Oh, yeah, of course. And you know that we will. There's going to be a Batman the Animated Series cover. There'll probably be one for all the different movies, and we're going to have to get them all.
Now, here's the question. Is Detective Comics 1000 going to be as big as Action Comics 1000?
Of course.
Oh, here's the only reason I say this. It's like, the one side you've got, it's Batman, right? Obviously more popular than Superman right now. And then, but Action Comics got there first. So first was Superman. The hype is there. It's the first one, number 1,000. People that buy Detective, it's like, yeah, we've had 1,000 before. So that's the one thing that I'm questioning.
It's Batman, Daniel. It's Batman.
He Batmans his way into being the greater of the 1,000th.
Will Batman be the second number 1,000th? 1,000?
Yes.
So then when Marvel gets there, we all don't care anymore because, we've already been through 2 of them.
They start releasing ASM weekly, like, shit, we gotta get there before fucking Batman. We gotta be the second one.
Twice a week, like you're getting shipments on Wednesdays and Sundays.
It's like, God damn it. Oh, that would suck. So let's wrap up that bit of comic news at least. Let us know if you bought Action Comics 1000. Take a picture. I've seen a lot of them already, and a lot of people are sharing their selfie with Action Comics 1000. So share that on Twitter, and we will definitely retweet it.
But keeping up with the comic book news, just kind of on the movie side, Daniel has a soapbox that he'd like to jump up on.
I do, because I've been seeing this article probably by Screen Rant, one of these websites that already have a bias leaning towards Marvel and Disney. And this is me, the way it's going to be taken already is going to be like, you're anti-Marvel. It's like, this is simply a fucking fact. And you're seeing this highlight, you're seeing this headline everywhere where Black Panther has passed Titanic at the box office for all-time earnings. And I'm already like, no way, that did not fucking pass that. Sure enough, no. Black Panther has not passed Titanic in box office earnings, not even fucking close. And we're going to break it out for you. No one adjusts for inflation when they're putting these fucking things together. No one does. Instead, they want to forget that tickets were $5 when Titanic came out, and they want to forget that tickets are now $10 to $14 to watch Black Panther. And
sometimes even more if you go to see it in like a dine-in theater.
Exactly.
It's $24 a ticket.
Exactly right. Sometimes triple the price of what Titanic would have been. But it's like, no, fuck that. Like, no, let's look at dollars. It's like, that's not the right way to fucking do it. Go to, as Clayton always pointed out, he's like, Box Office Mojo is the one. Go to Box Office Mojo, go to all-time earnings, go to adjusted for inflation, go to number of tickets sold, and you will see that Black Panther is nowhere near Titanic or even Star Wars The Force Awakens, which isn't even up that high, or many other Gone with the Wind, doesn't even touch most of those at the box office. But again, that goes back to that critical fucking thinking. Do some research. And again, people are going to view this as like, that's you slamming. It's like, no, this is simple fact. Like, look at the adjusted inflation. Right. Black Panther didn't, and it won't ever top Titanic because it's about to leave theaters.
So let's look at the actual numbers. I'm going to try and read these numbers, but they're big numbers. So I will try my best. Black Panther earned, or has at the time of this recording, $675,382,423.
All right. So I'll even round up $700 million.
Okay, $700
Let's say
million.
that.
Titanic, after inflation, so, right, if it was the same price?
Correct.
Is that what we're saying? If tickets,
Number of tickets sold.
A number of tickets sold, if they were the same price as Black Panther, Titanic earned $1,244,347,300. So let's round that up to $1,300,000,000.
Let's round it down to $1,100,000,000. Holy shit. Nearly double what Black Panther did.
Yes, yes. Just about.
Number one all time is still Gone with the Wind, who sits at $1,854,769,700 at the adjusted inflation box office.
Shit.
And it probably will sit there for a long, long time.
We haven't seen Black Panther, so I may be completely off base with this, but I feel like movies like Gone with the Wind and Titanic will continue to make money forever. They are those timeless pieces, whereas typically in the Marvel movies that we've seen, there is some form of mainstream culture that's going on right now that won't hold up as well with time. But Gone with the Wind, you can watch it now and it's still a solid movie.
It still holds up on its own. It's something you can watch forever.
Titanic just came back to theaters, and I don't know how well it did, but people were really fucking hyped for this movie when it came back into theaters.
It's also a product of the fact that the stories themselves, Titanic doesn't tie into this whole fucking universe. It is its own standalone. You can't release any of these Marvel or DC movies 100 years from now and be like, hey, let's only release Black Panther again. Let's only release Batman v Superman. It's not going to have the same impact as these movies that are, for all intents and purposes, better films. It's better work of art than what we're getting now. And it's not necessarily knocking these because it's the action movies of today. They're not focused on making these as long-term, pieces of artwork. They're just focused on, getting box office and getting as much money as you can right now because that's the goal, right? You got to keep your business afloat and you got to make money. But when it's a combination of both, where it is something that is going to stand, that people are going to watch 50 years from now, 80 years from now. And I'm not saying, oh, someone's going to watch Black Panther 80 years from now. Not the number of people or not to the reverence of Gone with the Wind or Terminator 2, if you want to go even, modern, just like Titanic. Those aren't going to be...
Or Rocky.
Fuck yes. Rocky, low budget ass fucking Rocky. And it tells this story that you really haven't completely replicated the same way. Maybe it's because it's one of the first that did it before or after it had been retold many years later, but it's just one of those things where it's like, this isn't what you think it is, and don't believe the headlines. Do a little bit of research, and now the brokettes know, so they're all like, oh, that's right. So now they can tell if they didn't already know, which most of them did.
Right.
I'm sure most of them did. Now they've already told their friends since then that it's like, guys, no, number of tickets sold.
I will say this, and I say it pretty frequently, but for those of you who are brand new to the show, I do appreciate Marvel movies for what it's done to highlight comics, to continue to push comic sales, comic movies.
The characters.
The
yes,
pops. There we go.
The Funko Pops. It doesn't push comics, though.
It pushes the characters, so that's okay. I appreciate it for that. I appreciate Black Panther for what I've seen that it's done for the African-American community. Little kids are excited because, oh, look, there's someone that I can, imitate that's on a screen. You understand.
There's been movies before that, but sure. All right.
Okay, listen. And something else that I've seen recently, it was a meme, but it was talking about how when, my generation was young, we had princesses to look up to. We had the Disney princesses. But fucking little girls nowadays have fucking generals. Sure. So they showed the woman from Black Panther. I have no idea who she is, because, of course, we haven't seen that movie. But they had Princess Leia, who's now a general, and then they had Robin Wright from Wonder Woman. And I was like, yes!
I've seen that meme passed around very much with the millennials.
Okay, that's fine. That. We are millennials. Did you know that? I agree.
I know.
We are millennials.
I can make fun of my own, though.
Okay, that's fine.
And I'm in that unique position.
Did you know the color of our generation is millennial pink?
What the fuck is that?
That is the color of our generation.
What does that mean? What do you mean, the millennial?
Millennial pink. That's the name of the pink color. It's like a hint of pink.
You know what? That's perfect.
And like everything is fucking, like, have you seen all the rose gold, everything that's going around?
No.
Edible glitter, all that bullshit? Oh, yeah, that's our generation. That's us.
You know what? I'm not going to be one of those, when I'm old and people make fun of my generation, I'll be like, you have some, you're right in some aspects. That's all right. Even older generations now that are like, this generation today, I'm like, some things, yes, you are correct.
But your generation had a lot of shit too.
Every generation.
I still can't buy a house, but thank you.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, every fucking generation has its shit. And it's like, it's kind of like, it goes back to music. It's like, music when I was growing up was better. It's like, no, people shit on your music too.
Right.
Older generation shit on your music. And it doesn't mean that the older ones were better. They're different tastes. And art is always evolving. So it's not better or worse. It's different. But if you want to label it as worse, that doesn't mean that it actually is.
Look at you being all accepting. And
I'm not being accepting. I'm being fucking truthful.
Yeah. That's when you're like, but music today is shit.
It's actually better than the 2000s. So I have the reverse effect here where
I loved the 2000s.
Where I'm like, no, the older music was kind of shitty.
NSYNC, Sean Paul.
Leave it there.
No, I listen to that every day on the way to work. You know what song kills me though? Shaggy. It Wasn't Me. Was he the one who sang that?
Yes, leave it there too.
No, did you see what he tweeted recently?
No, what did he say?
He says, I can finally admit it. It was me. And he fucking tweeted that. And the world was like, whoa! We all knew
it'd be better if it'd be awesome if he never tweeted again after that. Like, that was just, that's his legacy. That'd be perfect.
It was great.
So continuing with movie news, and I can continue going on that rant, but we gotta keep going. According to DC Entertainment, now we can pick on the bloggers, Steven Spielberg has signed on to produce and possibly direct a Warner Brothers movie based on DC's Blackhawks.
Well, shit. For those of you who don't know who the Blackhawks are, they're essentially that crew that you saw Wonder Woman with in the Wonder Woman movie.
Basically, yeah. Basically.
They're World War II is what they were originally from. World War II. And if you see that episode of Justice League Unlimited?
I think it was Unlimited.
Oh, man, it's great. Wonder Woman goes back in time. She meets these guys. She's flying with them. She's helping them in the war, and those are the Blackhawks. And then she comes back in time and goes and meets him, and he's dying. And oh, my God.
They even had the giant wheel weapons. I don't know if you remember that episode where they're like giant wheels. They ride on them, and they've got spikes on them.
Oh, yeah.
That's from the comic, too. And that's actually what captured Spielberg's attention. Marv Wolfman, he's a co-creator of the Teen Titans, he recently went on Twitter and he said that he saw that older comic and he wanted to put that in film, and that was back in the 80s. He's like, that's why DC signed my team on to bring back the Blackhawks in the 80s, because they were about to do this movie and they can tie it in and sell more books. But that deal didn't go through. Spielberg didn't end up making that movie, so they just had this comic and it continued. But he's like, Spielberg's been trying to make a Blackhawks movie theoretically, like in a way it's had his attention since the 80s. So now it's kind of like towards the end of his life, maybe he's looking back on some of these things and it's Spielberg. He can make whatever he wants at this point. He can make anything.
Oh, yeah.
You know, with that name, it makes money. However, I felt with Ready Player One, I didn't enjoy it, but many people did. People went to see it because it was Spielberg. I guarantee you, audience members over 50 who have no business in seeing Ready Player One because it is very video game based and it's catered to our generation, they probably went to see this because it's like, well, I like Spielberg. I grew up watching a ton of Spielberg films and I generally like him. If Aronofsky did a Minecraft movie tomorrow, you bet my ass would be on that fucking seat. So it's that same kind of effect. And when you have Spielberg, it's like, I didn't like Ready Player One, but overall, his movies, I enjoy most of his movies. I like E.T., I like Jurassic Park.
The really cool thing with the Blackhawks, too, is yes, it's comic book based, but still at its core, it's a war movie. So Wonder Woman could just make a cameo in it. She doesn't even have to be in there a lot, you know, if they choose to use Wonder Woman with the Blackhawks. But there's still just so much that you can do with these characters. And with a director like Spielberg behind it, then it's limitless. Like, there's so much. Most people are speculating that Blackhawks by Spielberg will be a standalone movie, that it won't tie into most of the DC movies. And that's also, not only because it's Spielberg, you don't tell him what to do. You don't tell him, you got to put in Superman, you got to put in Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman is the natural choice because of that last movie. Like, okay, we got to work in Wonder Woman into the script. It's Spielberg. He can say, fuck you, I'll leave. you know, this is my movie. And then you say, okay, Spielberg. I'm sorry. Whatever you want. Plus, Warner Brothers and DC. You fire that guy who told him to put in Wonder Woman. In general, they're moving in that direction. They've already, according to the latest news, they're less focused on trying to tie in everything. Good. And instead, they're trying to make quality standalone movies. And it's like now people are like, well, that's what they should have been doing.
But if that's what they tried to do from the beginning, people would have been asking. And I don't know if you remember, 2 years ago, they're like, why aren't the shows and the movies tied in? They should use the Flash from the TV show. And it's like, that back then, even they were demanding that they do it the Marvel way.
I love Ezra Miller as Flash. I'm glad we got him for the
He
movies.
was fine.
He was great.
And it's like, even if he wasn't, they were trying to do something different from Marvel. And now that they are, people are like, oh, good. It's like, there's no winning. It's always an uphill battle because Disney did it first. And that's kind of the argument that I think we made when Justice League came out. It's like, retain the fans you have, cater to them, not to the people that are going to criticize your shit anyway. And it seems like now they're going to do that. Now they're going to be focusing on stronger standalone movies. They've got fucking Spielberg working on a DC film. That is insane. Absolutely bananas.
And it's not just Spielberg. His longtime collaborator, David Coep, who wrote Jurassic Park, will write the script. I love Jurassic Park. Are we going to get Jeff Goldblum in the Blackhawks?
Fucking hope so.
And we're going to fly the plane.
Nazis behind us. Must go faster. Let's go faster. It's like, I don't think he fits in this.
He's in the apartments.com commercial. Have you seen that one? Yeah, he's great. He's there and he's like, and you want to find a home? Use apartments.com. And then he opens another door. He's like, welcome home. So the whole thing is like the family's falling from apartment to apartment because they can't find one. And so then he gives them an iPad and then they find it and they're like standing at the doorstep, but there's still open sky all around. And the one Jeff Goldblum, he's like, welcome home. And they walk in and the other Jeff Goldblum's starting to walk in. He just closes the door on it. It fucking dies.
That only reminds me of Death Wish. Goddamn rich cunt. I kill rich cunts.
Because it's in a house?
And it's his first role, and it's in an apartment, and he just locked his family in. It's like, don't trust that guy in there. He beat up old ladies back in the 70s.
You know, he has gotten much better looking with age, too.
That's true.
Men get better looking with age. All of them. Name me...
Louis C.K.
Okay, Louis wasn't particularly good looking in his youth either. So name me a good looking actor who got worse with age.
A good looking actor that got worse with age.
There's not one. Hugh Jackman got better.
Okay.
What's his name from Up in the Air?
George Clooney.
Yep, George Clooney got better.
Michael Keaton. Compare Batman 89 to the Vulture.
I still found the Vulture handsome.
Better looking than Batman?
I never really liked him in Batman. I was like, with the curly hair.
Okay, Jack Nicholson. The Shining Jack Nicholson.
Oh, that was a fucking... Why would you bring up The Shining?
Because that's still better... Okay, fine. One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest.
I don't remember it that well.
Okay, the Joker as Jack Napier, Jack Nicholson.
He had a big cheek, so
no,
it
he didn't.
Count.
That was after his surgery. His body. You see what I had to work with. The camera pans to the fucking knives and scissors. It's like, what the fuck? What were you doing to him?
Putting cheek implants, obviously. I never found Jack Nicholson extremely attractive anyway.
Never found him attractive at all?
No, not really.
He's a handsome guy.
Maybe because I've only seen him
in
like scary things.
Yeah, maybe. He got smothered by the chief in One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah, because he got lobotomized.
He looked all right in that.
When he was getting smothered by the chief. I never found him attractive. I don't know.
I'm sure the broadcast can come up with someone.
Patrick Stewart got more handsome.
Okay, I got one. Fucking Syrup. What's his name? Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek The Next Generation.
What's he look like now?
Look him up.
Is that a challenge?
I got another one too. The other captain from Star Trek.
Which one?
The main one, the original. His name escapes me right fucking the one time I should remember Captain his goddamn
Kirk.
name.
Oh man, I can remember how he talks.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we both know his fucking name, and right now when we're on the microphone, yeah.
What happened to Jonathan Frakes?
There you go. You got one.
Oh no. Oh man, it's gonna bother me that I can't remember his name now.
Me too.
I'm just gonna type in Captain Kirk and Google will tell me. I can't spell, so it's not gonna tell me.
I just spelled Kirk.
I spelled Kirk right. I could put Capti, period, Kirk. William Shatner.
Of course. Fucking of course. And here's another one. Batman 66. Adam West.
He got more handsome. When he was an old ass man, he was still handsome.
He's still...
And he wasn't, like, being weird and flopping around.
So William Shatner.
I never found him handsome either.
Not even when he was young?
No.
So it has to be someone that you found handsome.
Yes, I said a handsome person who got more handsome. If I didn't find him handsome to begin with, why am I going to think they got less handsome because they got old?
Yes, Jeff Goldblum is handsome then.
Jeff Goldblum is, and he got more handsome with age.
And he may be in the Blackhawks, according to Daniel and Kelly from the Reasons I'm Broke podcast.
You heard it first here. We are friends with Jeff John.
That's true. We are friends. He is following us, and we're following him. We have a quote here from Steven Spielberg on the Blackhawk. He said, quote, "It was wonderful working with the team at Warner Brothers to bring Ready Player One to the screen. They bring a blend of passion and professionalism to everything they do and have a tremendous history in the genre. I am excited to reunite with them on Black Hawk." End quote.
Okay, I'm going to read between the lines with this quote. Spielberg walked into the room and said, "I'll direct this shit if you let me do the Blackhawks."
That might have been a tie-in deal. Right? They usually have a multi-picture deal. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Obviously, we'll be there day one.
Of course.
We're excited for Blackhawks, whatever they end up calling it. He quoted it as Black Hawk, so whatever it is, whatever it ends up being.
He probably ran out. It was on Twitter. He ran out of characters.
The Blackhawks have recently appeared in Dark Knight's Metal. They tied him into Hawkman's origin. Probably won't happen in the movie.
I hope not. I just want it to be a standalone war movie. Can we get Tom Hanks?
Yes.
He's great in war movies.
Everyone he's worked with, throw him in there. So that does wrap it up for our news for the week. We had a good amount of stuff that we expanded on with the comics and the movies. Let's head into our Brocat block. Do you have your jingle for the Brocat block?
No, I always forget to make a jingle. Can't you just find a jingle so I can be mad?
Now you want me to hire someone at one time.
I don't want you to hire someone. Just find some cool, like, in West Philadelphia, born and raised. I don't know, something like that. And then I can be mad at you for finding a jingle and not letting me do the jingle.
All right, I'll work on it.
Thanks.
So this week on the Brocat block, so our personal lives, what happened throughout the week. We have a brand new shirt design on our TeePublic shop that is available on thereasonsimbroke.com. Just click on merch. And this was actually a design done by Joey Lee Cabral. So originally he sent us a thing on Instagram. He discovered us on there. I like to follow a lot of artists and then I pick and choose like, okay, eventually I'm going to get a commission from this person and this person and that person. And Joey was one of the ones that I ended up following. Well, inevitably he discovered the podcast based on like, hey, this guy keeps liking a lot of my art and I'm assuming that's how he ended up listening to the show. And he put out an Instagram story. And he not only did he say, hey, I'm enjoying this podcast, give them a listen at The Reasons I'm Broke, but he also sketched out our mascot, you know, the Broquette or whatever, Captain Broquette, whatever you want to call him. We don't have a name for him yet, but it's on the logo. He's flying next to the microphone. And he has him like with comics at his feet and he's crying like The Reasons I'm Broke, right? And I was like, this is amazing. Can you send me a high-res file of this so I can throw it on the shop? And he's like, let me clean this up like a true artist. He's like, let me do a better version of this. Like he criticized his own work and that's what an artist does, a writer, everyone. So sure enough, like less than a week later, he sends me a high resolution version and he added some long boxes behind him. And I was like, perfect. He sent that over. I went on Photoshop and I added the splashes of purple behind them. I added the white glow around it so it separates it with the purple. I do some art as well, so it's like, okay, I have to separate certain graphics. And then I'm like, all right, now it's done. And I threw that up on TeePublic. I promised the Brocat Core, next time there is a $14 sale, look out for a new design. And it went up. So that's the history of that particular design. Now all the Brocat Core knows like, oh shit, there's a lot to this fucking design. So that recently went up. Did you get a chance to check it out?
I did. I saw the design. I'm still waiting to buy my next shirt. I need one of those tank tops. I keep saying that. It's already, for those of you who don't live in Florida, it's already 89 fucking degrees outside. Like we are in summer. Florida has 2 seasons, summer and fall. And we are in summer already. And will be until late October.
Until next year.
Yes. So I am learning to be accepting of myself the way that I am. So
You're talking about post-baby birth?
Post-childbirth, yes. So I need bigger shirts. So that is on my list of ones to purchase because they have really nice tank tops and I can get it and it's comfortable and it's going to hide all this extra baby fat, which I will lose someday, I keep telling myself. But that day is not today.
So you too can get your baby fat hiding t-shirts at thereasonsimbroke.com/merch. Whatever sells them, Kelly. What else has been going on in your week? Leo last night was not fucking sleeping.
Oh my God.
Kept us both up.
2 nights ago, he slept all night. He woke up once and he slept great. And I woke up without being woken up. which has not happened in 6 months. And I woke up and I'm like, oh my God, we've arrived. Like, we're here. And so I was so excited to go to sleep last night. And then, of course, he was up from like 1 to 3.
More than that. Like, I feel like I was, like, I couldn't go back to sleep. I had that thing where it's like, oh, I'm up now. Like, my brain's like, hey, what's up? I have my own fucking baby in my own head.
And the most frustrating part, I didn't feel good last night, and he kept kicking me, which just frustrated me more because I already didn't feel well. But every time I just about to fall asleep, he would touch my face, which is very sweet that he does that. But it was a finger in my eye or up my nose, and that just exacerbated the problem. So, yes, did not sleep. Hopefully he'll sleep tonight.
We'll see.
We keep our fingers crossed. I think it's about time for him to move into his own bed.
That's, many brokettes are like, that's where you fucked up. You should have done that from the beginning. First time parents, guys.
Listen. When you're getting up every 3 hours with a child, it's easier just to have them in bed next to you. Because I need sleep to work. So, yes, that's what I did. But he's good. I mean, he's developing more every day, talking more, trying to crawl. It's amazing. And I've said it before, for me to watch the world through his eyes, because everything is amazing. So he's 6 months old in an 18-month clothes because he's a giant baby.
Yep. Not a tall one.
No, not a tall one. But his little twofers are in already, and he's just biting away. It's exciting.
The one thing I hear a lot from, and this was when you were pregnant and people were finding out, like, oh, you're going to go on maternity leave, and people with kids, and they're like, the best part about it, and he's like, they're like, oh, everything is great. And it's like, yeah, whatever. But they're like, the best part is that you relive your childhood through them. So you become a child again yourself.
Right.
As they're growing up. And that goes back to what you were saying, where you're rediscovering the world just like he is. And he's like seeing, you know, hands for the first time type thing. It's like, you know what? These hand things are kind of weird.
Well, one thing I was noticing, so typically on my days off, when you're not off with me, I would sit at home, I'd be on my phone, I'd read fan fiction, I'd catch up on my TV. You know, all my time was spent inside, all my time. But now I wake up with him, and we get up and we go outside and we eat breakfast on the back porch and enjoy the weather and the trees. And he comes inside and takes a nap. And that's when I take the opportunity to just shower or eat breakfast or whatever I need to do. And then he wakes back up and then we go for a walk and we're outside. And I got to the end of my day yesterday. You were working. It was just him and I. And it was about 5 o'clock. And I sat there and I said, I haven't turned on the TV at all today. Like, except for we play Magic School Bus in the background while he goes to bed.
Sure.
Except for that, I hadn't watched any TV. We had spent all our time in his room without the TV, with the toys, or outside, and I'm learning to appreciate those things again. I used to play outside a lot when I was a kid. I mean, back in the dark ages when you didn't really have TV, you had to wait till 4 o'clock for your show to come on. You know, you couldn't just pull it up and watch it. And the weather here, even though it's hot in the afternoons, it's really nice in the mornings. It's really nice in the evenings. So getting to just sit outside, I watch fucking butterflies fly through my yard and like birds and the trees rustling and squirrels running all around. You're like a Disney princess. I guess. And I'm just watching all this and I'm like, wow, this is really nice, you know? And that's something that I haven't done in years, because the way that I would de-stress from work is to be attached to something electronic. So that's very nice for me. Yes, it's great for him, you know, to get to be outside and do all those kind of things. But for me to have the opportunity to kind of disconnect and relax in that way is something that I'm really appreciating. I did discover a new TV show, though.
Which one?
I think I talked about it. Separated Together.
Yes, I think you did.
Did I talk about this? So we got to episode 3 and it's real sad. Oh my God. So she thought that he had a girlfriend, so she started going out with this guy. And then the girlfriend that she thought he had was really a dance instructor, because he didn't dance with her at their wedding, and then realized like how fucked up that was, because that's what she really wanted. And he's like, I was more concerned about myself than her, and maybe that's why our marriage failed. So he learned how to dance, and then the night that was their anniversary, she was coming home from a date. He was standing outside with flowers in his wedding tux, and he was going to dance with her and surprise her. Saw her banging some other guy in her car.
Oh.
And so like he was shitty all episode, and I was like, this is so sad, because they were almost going to be back together. And then, I mean, of course, it can't just end. Oh, and then my TV show Younger, right? That comes back in June, and I'm really excited for that. And last season, one of the ladies like wrote a book about her ex-husband, and the whole time they're like, oh, that page 58. Ho, ho, ho. Like, I can't believe she wrote that. So somebody fucking wrote the book and put a real steamy page 58 in there for all of us to read. And I'm just like, well, reasons I'm broke.
Yeah, all of my stuff is just obviously work related, and then catching up on everything from my, I guess, vacation.
Mm-hmm.
But the obviously with work, I've got Action Comics 1000 was this week. I've got a Pokemon pre-release this coming weekend that I'm running. So every 3 months, there's a new set that releases, and you get to play it 2 weeks early before the actual set releases. So it's always a huge thing for us. The week after that is International Tabletop Day. So we're going to be running demos. We're going to be doing raffles. So that's another like big weekend. And then after that is Free Comic Book Day.
Ooh.
So that's yet another like huge Saturday for us. That's actually the biggest day for all comic shops. Comic shops that don't run Free Comic Book Day, you don't want to be in business. Like it is a huge day, because most people do end up picking up more than just the free comics. Like they're like, you know what, let me get a little something extra. And it brings in a lot of people that normally aren't, weekly subscribers. It brings in the subscribers. It brings in your regulars. Everyone comes in at once on this one day. And it's amazing. Like I always hear people online and in the shop, they're like, you must hate Free Comic Book Day. And I'm like, no, I love it. Like I love the hustle and bustle. Like that's the one difference that I think I've ever had with any other job in the past, where it's like when you work with a huge company, you're like, oh man, I'd rather it be slow. Like I don't want to deal with the general public. But then when you work in a locally owned shop, when you know the owner himself, like you talk to him almost every single day, it's like you want to do well for everyone. You want to do well for yourself. So it's like a whole different experience. And I don't know if it's because of the number of years I'm in, or because I'm in a different position than like a part-time or regular full-time, but it's just like I love Free Comic Book Day. So like these next couple of weeks and weekends are going to be very busy, very exciting. And it's just, I don't know, it's a lot of good things happening all week after week. Plus, I'm back in town, so I've got UFC coming up next month. I'm catching up with a lot of my local friends as well. So I'm catching up with you and Leo. We ended up cleaning most of the house. I'm catching up on comics. It's a lot of catching up, but also like, oh shit, there's also this shit coming up too. So it's a lot of positive.
Life is always busy. And we got a Batman Catwoman wedding coming up.
And the fucking wedding next month. Or I'm sorry, in July.
Yeah,
in July.
I got to start exercising. We do have MegaCon next month. So that's coming up.
There you go. And there is an edit right there, because Parenthood, we have now little Leonardo joining us on the podcast.
Our little guest star, he's showing up. He was at Nana and Papa's house and decided he did not want them anymore. He wanted Mom. And those of you with children know when your child wants a parent, nobody else will do. Yeah,
and little AC as well. So we've got 2 children here joining us a little bit late. I don't know where they were. So with that, let's head into our Patreon shout-outs for the week.
Our first shout-out goes out to Rob, whose Twitter handle is @TheRealSciTech.
You can also find them on youtube.com/TheRealSciTech. He had been running into Bulbasaurs and Ivysaurs during what looked to be a Charizard event in Pokemon Go. So in my mind, I'm like, so they're correcting the event, really, because Bulbasaur is number 1 for a reason.
Okay.
Truth. I only speak truths.
They're just releasing better. The person who created that event said, we're just doing this so that people play, but you're really going to get some Bulbasaurs.
Whenever I did play Pokemon Go 2 years ago, I never ran into fucking Bulbasaur. Like my favorite Pokemon of all time, all day long, Squirtles and Charmanders. It's like, I don't want those fucking things.
I was so mad about the Pikachu hack that I did not know about when I first started. You know about that one, right?
Yeah, you keep walking away.
Yeah, and then eventually you find a Pikachu, and I was like, well, fuck.
So many little Easter eggs in that. Our next shout out goes out to Jared. Sorry, I'm laughing at Leonardo because he keeps looking at me in the microphone, and he's working this little correlation in his little brain. Like, hold on a second, this is for someone other than I.
Are you going to give the next shout out, Leo? Is that what you're doing?
Jared on Twitter @SpoonSandwich.
Jared has been trying to be getting back into Smash 4 on the Wii U.
Yeah, he put out a call on anyone else gets suckered into the Wii U because I'm trying to get back into Smash 4, and they're going to re-release that. I know people say it's an all-new Smash game. It's not an all-new Smash game. It's going to be Smash 4 with new characters, new stages, enough change to where it seems there's the illusion of an all-new game. And good for Nintendo because that's what you do. You save money, you develop the exact same thing, and you buffer it up.
Well, like we talked, if they did anything different, then people would be saying, I wish it was the same.
Right. So whatever skills Mr. Spoon Sandwich gets together, they will be very useful in Smash 5. Leo's like, I'll still beat all of you. And probably right, because everyone younger than me is better at that game.
And our final shout out goes out to Scott, whose Twitter handle is @LazyGamingGuys.
To celebrate Superman's 80th birthday, LGG played Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2.
They played as Deadpool, Venom, Spider-Man, and Mrs. Fantastic.
Be sure to check out their Let's Plays on youtube.com/LazyGamingGuys. You can also follow them on Twitter @LazyGamingGuys. And they just reached 100 subscribers, so congratulations to Lazy Gaming Guys. They need to have 1,000 subscribers.
Yes.
They do amazing Let's Plays. Be sure to check them out. So once again, all of our Patreon shoutouts follow @TheRealSciTech, @Spoon Sandwich, @LazyGamingGuys. Huge thanks to all of our Patreon backers.
If you too would like to be a Patreon backer, you can go to patreon.com/TheReasonsI'mBroke for as little as $1 a month. That's only 25 cents an episode. You too can get your shout out every single month.
That's right. If you feel like you're getting a quarter's worth of entertainment or information every single week, patreon.com/TheReasonsI'mBroke. Huge thanks to DecalAvenue.com for the help at the $5 decal reward tier. People have been getting their pins.
Woo!
They are available on TheReasonsI'mBroke.com. You've seen the pins. How great do they? They turned out great.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So if you've been a Patreon backer for 1 year, you will get your free pin. Otherwise, you are able to purchase them or just become a Patreon backer for a year.
And there has been a price update on the pins because it turns out that they're cheaper to ship than I expected. Like I was like, oh man, because it's going to be a thick envelope, and it turns out that they are less expensive to ship out to the Brokettes because we ended up shipping some out, and because of that, we are passing on the savings onto the Broquette Core. So they are now $11.99 per pin. So they are cheaper than Disney pins. They were cheaper than Disney pins even before that.
That's true.
But they are now $11.99 a pin. So if you don't want to wait for your 1 year or you want an extra one, so one now and one when you hit your 1 year on Patreon, head on over to TheReasonsI'mBroke.com, click on Pin Shop, and they're limited to 90 now. There's less than 90 available. So they were originally a run of 100. So you own one of 100 pins, possibly, if you're a backer or if you bought them. And once those are gone, they are gone. We are not going to make any more of these Brokehead Core pins. We're going to move on to a brand new design because that's the way we go, just like our t-shirt shop. So all of those earnings go right back into the podcast. They go right back into new pins, into new t-shirt designs. None of it goes directly to Kelly and I.
But of course, our podcast will always be free. The best thing you can do for us is talk to us on Twitter, let your friends know about us, leave us a review on whatever podcast you listen to us through.
There is also a link in today's episode for speakpipe.com/TheReasonsI'mBroke. If you want to be heard on the podcast, send us a question, send us feedback, send us something that you want to be heard on, that you want answered on speakpipe.com/TheReasonsI'mBroke. It's super easy to use. You click on the link in today's episode and it will take you straight into the page. You click on record an audio, record a question, send in a question, and from that website by itself, you can start recording from your phone, from the thing in your pocket.
That's so cool.
But with all of that out of the way, let's head into our final portion of today's show, our comic book highlight and review.
As we said in the very beginning, our highlight this week is Skyward #1. It's written by Joe Henderson with art by Lee Garbett, and the colorist is Antonio Fabela.
The writer is a producer on Lucifer, which is Kelly's. Yeah, I first heard the author on Word Balloon. And that's a podcast that I listen to very frequently. I always say that I hope to one day be as good of an interviewer as John Suntress. But as soon as I saw the interview, I was like, oh, that comic sounds awesome. And the final order cutoffs were coming up. And I was like, you know what? Let me order an extra for myself. So Skyward #1, we ended up picking up. I was like, hey, why don't you I didn't even tell you to give this a shot. And you ended up reading it. And you really liked it.
I did. I really, really liked it. The premise is this is a world without gravity. So one day, gravity just stops.
Or weaker gravity, yeah.
Weaker gravity, yeah. So people are floating around. So you open up with a couple, and they just had a daughter, and they're very much in love. That's when I was like, this is nobody's that happy. No mom is running around outside, right? But whatever.
I'm gonna go work out and run outside with my trim body, with my 2-year-old in the other room, my 2-month-old.
That baby wasn't even anyway. So. Opens with this, and then all of a sudden gravity becomes much weaker. Everybody starts floating away. The guy runs out to get his wife, sees her floating away, is going to go after her, but then here's the baby in the other room, and sorry, you got to go after the baby.
And that's the opening of the comic.
Yes, and your heart is just like, ugh. Fast forward, the girl's older now. The baby has grown up. She's 15.
Like 22-ish.
Is she 22? Okay, she's older. And she's really enjoying this world with lighter gravity. Obviously, that's what she's always lived in. So the people have little rocket shoes and ropes, and they're floating around, and obviously have adapted to be able to live into this world. And you know, just you kind of see a little bit of the life what the world is now, and it's a very cool setup. I really enjoyed getting to see how people adapted, what things that they're using, and realistically, it's not that much different from the technology we have today. So it wasn't like they needed to develop something crazy to make this happen. They said, okay, this is what we need to do, and they just kind of made it happen. We
need ropes that are extremely long, and people can grab onto them so they don't float off into outer space. And you're right. I'm glad they didn't fall for the trap that most creatives do, in which they're like, in the year 2000, there's going to be moving sidewalks and flying cars. Instead, they're like, no, there's these like not fire hydrants. What do you call them? Like the fire putter outer things. What do you call them?
Fire extinguishers.
They use fire extinguisher packs to like move themselves around, and it's like the rocket shoes. It's like that's the one thing. I was like, we're not gonna have those.
No, we aren't. But this is essentially a fairly simple technology that they could come up with.
But that's like the most futuristic thing in the whole thing. Other than that, it's like belts and long ass strings are in the city for in case you end up going too high. You can still grab on and kind of bring yourself back down. And they still
had like regular guns, not laser guns.
Yeah, and then that's the funny part. Like, that's probably the last thing I'm going to ruin is they're like, nobody uses regular guns anymore. It's suicide because the impact of that bullet being fired, you're going to be shot backwards because that's how low gravity is in this future. So there's a lot of really neat things. The setup is great, and we recommend this latest title from Image Comics.
Leo does as well. You gonna tell them, Leo? Tell them how much you recommend
it. Baby's words are worth $1 million.
Yes. Babies don't lie, so.
Were you biased because it's one of the producers from Lucifer?
No, because you didn't tell me till after, didn't you? I don't even remember. I really enjoy Lucifer, so I'm glad that he's a producer. But it tells a good story. It sets up a really cool world and makes me want to follow it.
There you go. That is our comic book highlight. And I do want to say, with the recent interviews. Jesus Christ. That's the loudest he's been on the show, I think.
Ever.
With the latest interviews that we have had on the podcast, we hope you've enjoyed them. Last week, we had Timothy Lim. So as always, if you enjoyed any of these interviews, let them know on Twitter. Let them know wherever you can find them on Facebook. And, we do hope to have a lot of them back when they have their next big project. And as always, we'd like to have something different. And we wouldn't have these Skype interviews if it weren't for the listeners or the Patreon backers. So it's just us taking advantage of what all of you have made possible. So huge thanks again for everyone for tuning in and for we're having a stronger month than last month. So huge thanks for tuning in and for helping us spread the word. And for that little guy alone.
Yes.
It's worth it.
So as always, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the show. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Darth Vader Daniel.
And Leo is here as well. Broquette Core, all will be well.